Hello and welcome to the Matchbook podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. It's not just the Champions League podcast today because we're also talking Europa League as well. Two big European finals for us to look forward to. Sevilla against Inter on Friday night, and then the pinnacle of European club football on Sunday evening in Lisbon as PSG take on Bayern Munich. Joining me to explain to you while you should be backing what they're backing in both of the games are Mark O'Hare and Ian Broadrick. Also, Aidan O'Sullivan from Matchbook is here with the odds as well. Guys, welcome along. We spoke before the semi-finals and you were both quite keen on Bayern to progress. Your best bet, Brothers, was Bayern -2, I think, which came through pretty comfortably. So no nervous evening for you.
No, it was great. Yeah, I mean, obviously it seemed to all go to plan, although, we'll talk about it in a bit about Bayern's defensive deficiencies and the fact that Leon should have scored at least once and probably a couple of goals. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, nice to get one in again.
We fancied both teams to score in both of the matches. Mark, you were particularly keen on Leon to score. As Brothers said, they really should have scored, but they couldn't manage to get our BTTS over the line.
Yeah, frustrating, Phil, but I guess that's what happens in betting sometimes. Things just don't go your way. It's not like they didn't have opportunities. We said they would within the first sort of 20 minutes. I thought they started the game really strongly, probably deserved to be ahead before the goal went against them. Quite a fantastic strike from Serge Gnabry there. But yeah, it wasn't to be, unfortunately. But fortunately, Brothers' handicap pick came in quite comfortably. And yeah, the other game, well, it was strange, really. I was quite disappointed with Leipzig. I know they got a lot of criticism for their approach, but I actually didn't think there was a huge amount wrong with that because they've done that in the Bundesliga. We kind of alluded to the fact that they have done it in the Bundesliga in our preview too, so it wasn't a huge surprise. Probably more so for the BT Sport commentators and pundits who seem baffled by it all. But yeah, shame for them. They just didn't manage to turn up, and PSG obviously made them pay.
I think the biggest surprise was Julian Nagelsmann's outfit, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Leipzig to know whether or not he usually dresses like that. I was a fan. I thought he looked pretty good, but I think I might have been one of the only ones. Sally, let's kick off with PSG and Bayern and tell us what the market's looking like for that game.
Interesting market, Phil. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here, just make it a small bit bigger this week. But the font, PSG, currently available there at 3.36. FC Bayern Munich 2.11. That's a very interesting price. Open at 1.89 at Matchbook. So there has been a bit of PSG money around early doors on Thursday. The draw is available there at 4.1. You can back PSG plus half a goal at 1.88, and the total is 3.5. And it is a fascinating total, Phil. We talked about it last night on our WhatsApp group. Very keen to get the guys' opinions here because it's actually odds against on the over. Now, how long will that last throughout the weekend is anybody's guess.
I'm going to say not long, but I'm not an expert. Let's see what let's see what the guys have to say. That Bayern Munich price looks very, very tasty indeed. Just to let you guys know, obviously this is an audio podcast available wherever you get your podcast, but we're also live visually on the Matchbook Twitter channel, YouTube, Facebook as well. And if you do have any comments while we're broadcasting, make sure you let us know and we'll read them out. Mark, let's kick us off then with your thoughts on this final.
Okay, there's quite a lot to unpack, but I'll try and keep it relatively succinct. Firstly, I think in terms of final, the Champions League final, we've got possibly the best lineup we could possibly get from the last 16 anyway. So two top-heavy teams who like to play attacking football, score goals and entertain, and obviously that's been reflected in the goals market there. The goal expectancy is around 3.6 for this game, so everything seems to be geared up towards a high-scoring game, certainly since we've moved to the neutral venues for the quarterfinals onwards across the Champions League and Europa League. 10 of the 12 games have gone over 2.5. We're looking at over 3.5 here. I guess there is a kind of cautionary tale here that it is a Champions League final. There is plenty at stake. There's plenty of pressure on both teams. And I'm not sure too many of these kind of games where we do really big them up actually always kind of come through in fruition with a high-scoring game. But you'd be foolish really to sort of go against the goals. I think everything's in your favour here, and obviously, as Brothers has talked about previously on the podcast, about if an early goal goes against one of these two teams, we could easily be in for a basketball kind of game. So that's the hope anyway. In terms of the match prices, as Sully said, really interesting, especially the sort of slight move against Bayern Munich early doors. But obviously, you look at towards closing prices as a bit of a guide, really, and these two teams have had plenty of kind of case studies in that sort of regard in recent weeks and across the season. Bayern were generally a 1.8 shot at Dortmund behind closed doors in May. They won that match 1-0. PSG went off around the same price on neutral territory against Leipzig, and the market kind of rates Dortmund and Leipzig, or did rate Dortmund and Leipzig very similarly in the Bundesliga. So even for accounting a little loss in home and field advantage in that game, you're still seeing Bayern stronger favourites there than PSG were. So I was anticipating something closer to 1.8. I thought it might be 1.7. So when the market did open, I wasn't too surprised. Obviously, seeing them drift now to sort of 2.1-ish is quite surprising. I think that might be a reaction to what we saw in midweek. Obviously, PSG getting key players back fit and firing. The word is that Idrissa Gueye, Verratti as well, and even Keylor Navas could be fit and available. We know Mbappe is. Di Maria made a huge impact when he came into the team too.
Was it also a reaction to maybe some of Bayern's defending the other day? And people thinking this PSG side can get at them?
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, we've seen now in the last two games with Barcelona and Lyon, two, I don't want to say average teams, but compared to these two teams you would expect to be beaten, getting numerous opportunities. But before we kind of pile in on Bayern Munich for that kind of perceived weakness and vulnerability, I think it's worth trying to understand again why they do that. And I'd be amazed if Flick sort of went with such a high line once again. I think he will kind of pull them back a little bit. But there is advantages to playing in that high line, and that's what Bayern see. They see the positives outweighing the negatives, and that's kind of stretching the field, or actually condensing the field, I should say, when the opposition have the ball, trying to win the ball back early, high up the field, because they know that if they do win the ball back in transition, they're in a much more advantageous position to then go and potentially score goals rather than concede goals. You have got two of the fastest defenders in the world. The back four, you've got probably the best sweeper keeper as well in the world, just behind them too. But if I was PSG, rather than looking down the flank with Alphonso Davies, you want to get Mbappe on the opposite flank. If it's Kimmich or Pavard, get the long balls in over there, get him racing down there rather than down Alphonso's track. But anyway, it's all geared up to be quite a fascinating tactical battle. I wouldn't be too surprised if Bayern went a bit more pragmatic, a bit more conservative in their approach. Also, PSG, what they're going to do with that midfield, if all the players are fit and firing. I'd want Verratti in that team particularly. I think he embodies that midfield and what PSG are all about in terms of leadership, link play. I like Di Maria up top with Neymar and Mbappe as well. So I think it's quite a fascinating game to kind of unpack. But for me, it's all about Bayern really at the prices. I think we said in the WhatsApp group what we expected Bayern to be at and what we probably hoped they'd be at. They're now much bigger than I anticipated them being. I didn't expect them to be odds against. So for me, there's slight value there in Bayern Munich, but also in the goals market. I mentioned earlier the sort of potential for a basketball game, and I do think an early goal here absolutely sets the game alight. And if it's a PSG goal, even better, because Bayern have been so strong, so in control for 6 months or so now. I think they've only trailed for about 30 minutes across all their matches. They're not used to being behind, so it'd be really interesting to see them chase the game. My inkling is they're just kind of just follow their normal game plan really, which is we'll score more goals than you. So it's all set up to be a cracker. But my two angles would be Bayern Munich and over 3.5 goals.
Okay, I know you watch a lot of Bundesliga, Mark. I'll just very briefly before I come to you, brothers. Is Hansi Flick the best manager in the world? Because this was gearing up to be a terrible season for Bayern Munich. There were 7 points behind the leaders at one point, I think, in November. He took over. They won the Bundesliga at a canter. They're in the final of the Champions League. They're sweeping aside opposition. This is an incredible turnaround.
It is an incredible turnaround, and it's incredible because he's not done a huge amount differently to what was going on previously. He's just made them more relaxed, more happy. The man management skills behind him is really key, but also much more aggressive. And basically the players are having a say in tactics as well. They want to play this high line. They want to play this attacking football too. So it's a really happy family. And I think when you've got such a strong squad like Bayern Munich's, all pulling in the same direction, it's quite a phenomenal beast as we've seen in the last 6 months. So, it is quite amazing. I think previously under Niko Kovac, they were much more conservative and pragmatic, which doesn't really suit Bayern Munich. You saw them getting ripped apart by Liverpool last season in the Champions League. Well, Hansi Flick kind of reversed it, really. He said, we're Bayern Munich, let's go on the attack, let's go on the offensive and see how these teams can manage us. And obviously the players are delighted. He's brought Muller back into the team, playing in his right position behind Lewandowski. And they look a really strong animal. And if Pavard does come back into the team this weekend, you get Kimmich back in midfield too. So, they've got so many options across the park, even defensively. If Boateng misses out, you saw Niklas Süle come onto the pitch in the second half. He's not a bad replacement at centre-half to have.
Brodgers, you must be feeling very, very pleased, very, very, dare I say smug, having backed PSG in the anti-post market, and now you've got PSG in the final as the outsiders against a Bayern Munich side who are priced at a very tempting looking price as well. So you're in a good spot, mate.
Yeah, I mean, smug's an ugly word, if I'm honest. But yeah, I mean, obviously very happy to see PSG get there. I think the thing that I'm most looking forward to and hoping for is that PSG actually get to play their proper full-strength side, which they've so rarely done in this competition so far. And, with Verratti looking like he's going to come back, I mean, Mark's already touched on it. He's so important for their midfield. He really makes them tick, both in terms of their distribution and their passing out of defence, but also the way that he breaks up play and is very strong defensively. I think there's a number of very interesting tactical and selection issues that we need to think about with this game. And again, Mark's touched on them. I think there's a good chance Pavard comes back in. He looked fit and quick and strong when he came on as a sub. I think his knowledge of Mbappe from their French squad days, for want of a better term, is going to help him. And I think, Mark's right. I think Mbappe will play on the left. But I think Kimmich in central midfield gives Bayern a bit more defensive solidity. He's such an intelligent and such a good player. He can go where he's needed. And I think you're likely to see one of Goretzka or Thiago drop out for Pavard in that formation. I also think, as Mark says, where they press is going to have a huge influence on the match. If they do what they've been doing very successfully so far and continue to press high up the pitch, the match is going to condense down to how effectively PSG can play around that press, and whether or not they can get the ball into that final third quickly and release Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria, and get them in behind the Bayern defence, as Lyon did so successfully. I mean, Lyon showed PSG what needs doing. And I thought Lyon's attackers didn't reinvent the wheel in terms of their movement. It was just, they were showing for the ball and then spinning in behind, and then all of a sudden they're in. Ikambi did it a couple of times very effectively. And you're talking about a better quality of player, to say the least, when you're looking at your Neymars and your Mbappes of this world. So I think for me, if Bayern do press up the pitch, as I believe they will, it's all going to come down to how PSG can play out of defence. And for that reason, I think they might play Paredes rather than Gay, because Gay's tremendous defensively. But if Verratti is fit, you've got Verratti and Marquinhos in there who've got that defensive ability. And I think Verratti's ball playing and Paredes' ball playing, an ability on the ball to pick a pass and to do it quickly is going to be very important for them. So, I think in many ways the match will be won or lost in that particular battle. Now, obviously, Keylor Navas is very important as well. And if he's fully fit, that's a huge plus for them, because, Sergio Rico did okay in the semi-final. He wasn't really put under a great deal of pressure. But, I mean, Sergio Rico, for Fulham fans, will remember just how terrible he can be. That season in the Premier League, Fulham conceded a record number of goals, and he had a number of brain farts which contributed to that. So I think PSG wouldn't feel wildly happy if Navas wasn't fit for this final. I suspect he'll get wheeled out. If he's 70-80%, he'll get wheeled out. But Mark's already touched on it. I think I obviously want PSG to win this game. I think I love the way that they play when they're in full flow with Neymar and Mbappe and Di Maria, who, you look at the semi-final, Di Maria was outstanding in that game against Leipzig. And they just play such beautiful football. But then so do Bayern. And it's one of those games where you can really just sit back, enjoy. I don't think either team is going to get starstruck or worried about the final. I think they're going to go out there. Again, if there is an early goal, brilliant. That's really going to set light. But I think this is just one of those games where you can have 2 or 3 goals scored within 5 or 10 minutes at any point. They've both got the quality to do that. At the odds, Bayern are the value. They have to be. You can't look at the way that they've attacked Barcelona and Lyon. I mean, this is a Lyon side that knocked out Man City over 2 legs. Knocked out Juventus over 2 legs, and then knocked out Man City. And have performed very, very well. And then all of a sudden, Bayern score a couple past them in the first half, and then second half, they always look like they had 2 or 3 gears left to go through. They honestly look like they've just sort of game management in the second half. So I think the safest bet is goals, because I think PSG have the quality to beat Bayern. But I think, if you're looking at the 1x2 markets, Bayern are the value at around 2.1. And odds against on over 3.5 goals is, very tasty.
Sally, you got a question for the guys?
Yeah, just I'm kind of fascinated by this goal market in general. Like we alluded to there at the top, we were discussing it last night. Playing the hypothetical game. What will this line be? I said to Brothers, it was no way it was going to be a flat 3. You pretty much said that if it was a flat 3 at any bit of a decent price, you would put your kids up as collateral. I hope Mrs. Broadrick isn't watching this now, but I'm pretty confident that she.
What's said in the WhatsApp group stays in the WhatsApp group.
I can't believe you're stitching me up like that. Thank you.
I missed that memo. But Mark, you said previously over 3.5 was the bet you were looking at, and I hope you won't take offense to this. I know that sometimes you're pretty risk averse, and there's 3.25 there at 1.84 currently in Matchbook. Is that not a better angle to attack? And if it's a flat 3 is something like 1.7, are we not having a big bet on that?
Yeah, I mean.
Mark likes bigger odds. He likes bigger odds than 1.7.
Well, he likes the better. He likes the better.
1.7 is his sweet
He loves the
spot.
1.7. Loves it. Absolutely loves it.
It is, and now you've mentioned it. Now I'm obviously with the brains ticking over and saying, no. I mean, I think in this case, I didn't expect over 3.5 goals to be odds against, and I think there's so much attacking talent. Where are these two teams most threatening? It's always in the final third. You've got some of the best players in the world going forward at the moment, and I just think, well, why not? It's the Champions League final. I'm not really explaining myself very well here, but I went on the market this morning, wide-eyed really when I saw it, and I didn't really have to go anywhere further because I'm looking at that price and going, you need 4 goals, fair enough, but I can see Bayern winning as 3-1, 4-2, 2-2's now out of the mark and out of the market either. So, I'm not really kind of justifying it very well here at all, Sally, but in terms of a goal line, over 3.5 is what I wanted. Over 3.5 is a better price than I expected. So I'd happily take that over the safer options for the first time in probably this season.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting to hear. Okay. So before we move on, let's get your best bets for the Champions League final then. Brothers, your best bets for this year's Champions League final is?
Could you go to Mark first? Because I'll take the other one.
Okay. Mark, your best bet for this year's Champions League final is?
Over 3.5 goals.
Fair enough. Good. Brothers?
He's done that to make me back Bayern at 1. But it is Bayern at 2.1. It makes me sick to say it.
Yeah, but like I said, you're in a good spot, brothers. So you're not feeling that sick, I'm sure. Let's move on and talk about the Europa League final, because it's a really interesting looking game. It's a big game between the most successful side in the history of the competition, Sevilla, and an Inter side that finished runners up to Juve in Serie A and are, Sally, big favourites.
They are. They actually open at shorter than this. They're currently 2.21. There has been a bit of money around. You'd be delighted to know, Phil, for Sevilla. 3.5 is the draw. 3.6 currently Sevilla. 2.21, as you said, Internazionale. The main handicaps in Asian line at the moment is 1/4 goal start. Sevilla are getting at odds against, and a very different goal line for this one, 2.5. But that's kind of one that kind of tempted me as well with an over, just looking at this Inter team, the last they could score goals of fun. And, there's always a goal or two in Sevilla, but interested to get the guys' thoughts on that.
Okay. Brothers, tell us what you're thinking for this final.
Okay. Well, I've been quite anti-Inter so far in this Europa League, which has not worked out tremendously well. I thought Shakhtar would give them a real problem in the last game. And obviously they didn't. It was the exact opposite. And Inter were fantastic. And I think one of the reasons that I was wanting to try and be against Inter was that if you look at the way that Serie A sides have performed in this sort of knockout format, a lot of them have looked quite jaded. It looks, they've been at the end of a long season, and a few of these sides have wilted in the second halves of games and have really struggled. But Inter under Conte, Conte's obviously got them drilled and fit to their lives because they were so strong and have been so strong in their games so far physically that it's enabled them to play this sort of pressing style that Conte wants them to play. The three at the back it's been solid. I don't think the stats necessarily reflect the ability of Inter to concede a goal. They've got 8 clean sheets in their last 9 games or something, which looks amazing. But then, they're still a side that concedes chances to the opposition. Shakhtar, Gino Moraes missed an open goal with a header, which he should have scored. Getafe missed a penalty. They're a side that, they conceded against Leverkusen. They're a side that can concede goals. But I don't see this Sevilla side having the quality to score many against them. I think we saw in the semi-final with Sevilla versus Manchester United. Sevilla just don't have that quality up front. Al-Nassiri and De Jong are okay, but they're only okay. And unless they get it really laid on a plate, they're not the sorts of players who are going to, go out there and score goals in the way that Lukaku and Martinez combine and create stuff for each other. And Lukaku's physicality is absolutely awesome right now. He looks like an absolute beast, doesn't he, up front? And his battle with Koundé is going to be one of the highlights of the match for me, because Koundé is a big, strong, athletic centre-half, young guy. He's going to match Lukaku's physicality, and it should be a really interesting battle between them. But I think, Sevilla's... Sorry, Phil, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that I heard Luke de Jong described as the best player in La Liga at nearly scoring goals, because he does get in positions, but then he either misses or is ruled out for offside, or I'm not sure, because, he hasn't scored that many this season.
Obviously, he scored the winner in the semi, and he's Luke de Jong is a good player, but he's not the sort of player that you would look at and think this is someone who could play for a top 6 side or should be in a top 6 side. And obviously, Sevilla have ambition for that. Lopetegui is a hugely brilliant coach who I admire greatly. And I think if you look at Sevilla's side, all of their threat comes down the flanks, with especially the fullbacks, with Reguilon and Navas. They bomb down there and they provide the ammunition for players in the middle. So there's going to be there's a question mark over Inter's fullbacks. Ashley Young is not getting any quicker, and you've got D'Ambrosio on the other side as well. He's not wildly quick. And so I think if Sevilla are going to have any success in this match, it's going to be down the flanks. But, Conte knows that. He's going to have he's got Bastoni on one side, he's got Godin on the other, who's, got a ton of experience. Reguilon's going to have every trick in the book thrown at him, So I think in terms of if you match attacks versus defence, and Sevilla have obviously got a very strong defence as well.
They do.
So Inter have got more of an edge against Sevilla's defence than Sevilla's attack have got against Inter's defence. And so, looking at it, I really feel as though Inter are the most likely winners, and for me are a decent bet at around 2.2. I think Sevilla could easily have and should have lost to Manchester United. The number of chances that they conceded to that United front three, if they concede those chances to Lukaku and Martinez in the form they are, and the likes of Barella, who's playing brilliantly in midfield, they're going to lose. And so I think, Inter for me at 2.2 is the bet, and I actually quite like them quite strongly.
Okay. I obviously live and work in Spain, watched a lot of Sevilla. I am fully backing Sevilla to win this.
That's the kiss of death. I'm all over Inter now.
I love the price of just over evens for them with a quarter goal start. I think that's very, very tempting indeed. Mark, I've got a feeling that you're more in Brothers' camp than in mine, but let's hear it.
Yeah, only just. I've got a qualm with the odds, to be honest. Inter slightly shorter than I wanted them, expected them to be. I hope they'd be more closer to 2.5, 2.6, so we could potentially get the zero ball start on the Asian handicap, but not to be. And the reason I say that is you kind of look at the price that Inter are going off now against Sevilla compared to where United were, and United were the clear favourites outright to win the competition, and United were around the same price, if not slightly bigger. So clearly the market rates Inter Milan. I don't know if that's an overreaction to what happened against Shakhtar Donetsk or not, but Antonio Conte does tend to win a trophy in his first season at a new club, and this is the one that's up for grabs here. So I think Brodders has filled you in brilliantly on most of the topics that I would have kind of covered as well. I think he's being slightly harsh on Inter's defence because I think there's been a sort of changeover. I know they muddied the waters a little bit defensively over the winter and early spring when they looked pretty disorganised, out of possession, conceded quite a few goals as well. And then they tried to sort of change their system to incorporate Christian Eriksen into the team. Didn't really work, so Conte's gone back to basics, gone back to 3-5-2. And I was really, really impressed with them defensively, actually, against Leverkusen and Shakhtar. The way they just sort of sat back out of possession in their positions, invited the pressure on, allowed Shakhtar especially to have the ball. They had 63% possession. I think they had 6 shots in the end. And yeah, there was one great opportunity to score. But apart from that, they just didn't look threatening whatsoever. And I think that's a lot down to Inter's system. I certainly think in possession, they're looking a lot more threatening now, especially in transitions where they look to get the ball forward quite quickly. Barella's a beautiful dictator of play. Brozovic is really enjoying his playmaking role as well. And then the pace, power, the strength and the sort of movement, I guess you could say, from Martinez and Lukaku as well. It's the perfect outball for them. So the blueprint is there to contain and counter against this Sevilla team who do like to play intense football, like to be taking the initiative as well. But again, I've got doubts about Sevilla and their forward line in particular. It's not an elite forward line. It's not anything comparable to what Inter are offering going forward. Campos went off injured. I know he's going to be probably fine for this game too, but that's a worry, possibly outside of Banega, the most creative and an influential player in that team. And then, as you mentioned, with the fullbacks as well, with Reguilon and Navas, I know they're excellent in going forward, and they created the 2 assists against United, but defensively they can be found wanting as well, especially when they do bomb forward. And then at centre-half, Diego Carlos and Jules Koundé, who've been superb all season, but suddenly Diego Carlos looks a bit vulnerable too, giving away penalties. So I think they were slightly fortunate against United, especially in the goals that they scored. They're not going to get those opportunities against this Inter defence. United's defending was diabolical, really, for both goals. And I'm not sure that Inter are going to be quite so forgiving. Even going back to the Wolves game, actually, where they huffed and puffed and dominated possession, really. How many clear-cut opportunities did they create? I wouldn't say too many either. So I think it's probably fair that Inter are favourites, reasonably strong favourites, but I would have had them closer to sort of 2.5. I still think they're the most likely winners of this match, but I don't see it being quite comfortable anyway. You look at Sevilla, I think they've only been beaten by more than 1 goal once all season. And again, just look at their record against La Liga's elite as well. They won once in 10 against the top 6, failed to beat any team in the top 5, scored once in 4 games against Barca and Real as well. So, yeah, there's a few sort of concerns I have over Sevilla coming into this game. I do think they're being slightly underrated, but I think Inter are the most likely winners.
Way to deflate my Sevilla bubble, Mark. I was really, really excited there. But yeah, all right. Okay, good point. Sully, you got a couple of questions for the guys?
I actually don't really have a question, so to speak, but it was just something I kind of observed last night with Inter, and the guys can tell me better on this. But, even 3 or 4-0 up against Shakhtar. Now, obviously, Shakhtar were an absolute pity and a mess on the night, but the tracking back, working hard as if it was a 0-0 game, or even if they were 1-0 up, it was just sensational to view. And like, even as Mark says, they're 2.21 at the moment, but like, from my eye, just watching that, I was like, okay, I want to be on them in the final. Again, we have to be somewhat price sensitive, but look, 2.21 is definitely a workman's price. And Broder's point was very salient as well, that how United missed those chances, especially at the start of the second half. It would have been a completely different game, just by the Sevilla goalkeeper's heroics. So, sorry, Phil, 3-1 on this one, mate.
Listen, allow me to very briefly give my
floor is yours. Go for it.
My case for Sevilla. Okay, so in Julian Lopetegui, they've got one of the best managers in Spain. He's got the side working brilliantly. It's probably one of the best coach teams in Spain. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be. Everybody knows their job. Yes, they don't have an out-and-out goal scorer, Luke de Jong, Youssef En-Nesyri, but they do have Lucas Ocampos, who is a wildly creative, fantastic, exciting player who has been scoring goals. And Sevilla do generally tend to score one goal in the game. There's been very few matches where they haven't scored any goals at all this season, so we can readily expect them to score maybe one, possibly two. The back line, you said Diego Carlos is looking a little bit dodgy, but him and Jules Koundé, they've been one of the best centre-back pairings in Spain. Those two full-backs bombing forward, incredibly dangerous, Reguilon and Navas, as we saw against Manchester United. In the middle of the park, they've got one of the best midfielders that's ever played in La Liga, certainly the 21st century, in Ever Banega. It's his final game for Sevilla. He desperately wants to go out on a high. He's going to orchestrate the midfield, and he's going to lead Sevilla to a 1-0 victory.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, very good.
Why do I get the feeling, guys, if Sevilla do win on Friday night, we will never, ever hear the end of this, ever.
It's on video, it's on podcast, it's going to be go down in history. But there we go. Okay.
You do realise, Phil, you're only getting paid as a host today, not as a host and a guest, okay, or an analyst. Okay, so just so you know.
Okay. There we go. I've said my piece now.
It was a good case. It was a good case.
Thank you. I've said my piece, guys. Your best bets for the Europa League final. I think you might have the same best bet, but that's fine. Brothers, your best bet?
Inter to win. Sorry.
Fair enough. It's okay. It's your money. Mark?
Romelu Lukaku to score. If you shop around, probably on Matchbook, actually, you should be getting top price in the industry, which was around 2.6 on Thursday morning, which is a fantastic price for a striker banging form, who's got about a 52% scoring rate this season in the matches he's appeared for club and country. The odds imply about 40% chance, so there's clear value there. And I think, the way he's been playing at the moment, he's been bullying defenders all over the place in the Europa League as well as Serie A. So, it's time for him to shine, and he's one goal off equaling Inter's record for a player in their debut season, which is 34 goals set by Ronaldo back in the day.
Wow. Okay. So there we go. Two different bets for the Europa League final between Sevilla and Inter. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. And that's it for this season. Thanks very much for joining us throughout the whole season. It's been a long and hopefully unique season. We're going to go away for a couple of weeks, but obviously we'll be back pretty soon because the Champions League, group stages, fingers crossed, are just going to be around the corner for the 2020-2021 season. Make sure you subscribe to the Matchbook betting podcast on your preferred podcasting app, and we'll see you very soon. Enjoy the games. See you later.